Welcome back to Dirty Pretty, the space where we own our feelings, honor our experience, share unfiltered truths, and talk shit, all through a lens of love. Today's guest, Charlotte Teunissen, wants you to believe in magic and know that not only are you a soul, but you have soul too. As someone whose purpose is deeply rooted in freedom, Charlotte wants you to dig deep and boldly step forward into safe visibility by seeing yourself clearly. A dancer, natural healer, and coach in one, Charlotte helps others gain confidence and acceptance to pursue life's passions. She believes an activated presence is the pathway to personal stability, and she wants to help you manifest it. Come turn your wildest dreams into reality by consciously minding that your mission is to become the most whole, soulful, and authentic version of yourself. Welcome, my friend.
Welcome. Can you send me that text? That's so good.
Thank you so much. It is such a funny thing, and all the viewers and listeners that watch this or participate in any way, shape, or form, they can attest. Every guest that comes on is like, "Wow, I love that," and I'm like, "It's all you. It's your site. It's how you portray yourself." And I just go in and kind of like read your essence, and I'm like, "This is the shit. This is who she is." And so it's all you. I'm happy to be able to portray it in a way that makes you feel seen.
Thank you. You
Yeah.
give this to people, right? You give this.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you will
Yeah.
definitely get this. It'll also be in the caption of the social medias that
Ah,
come out as well.
no, I mean like in general, like this is what you do. This is what you give.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah, no,
appreciate that. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
So, for the people that are watching and they're here for everything that you have to say, why does soul matter to you?
Why
Why
does
is
soul
soul?
matter to me? I think that's um I think it's a question that I cannot definitively answer because um it's hard for me to see soul as this separate thing or this thing that you could um, that is loose from our experience or that could be appreciated or not because it's inherently part of us who we are, and it's merely a reminder that happens when we are here. It's like, ah, damn, this is that what wants to come through. This is that soul that wants to come through and that wants to be seen and heard, held and loved and appreciated. And this is actually the child within me that wants to roam, right? Like this is the child within me and the woman and the fierce warrior that is here to serve this mission. And then there are just these other layers that we learn to see and hopefully appreciate, and slowly are able to gracefully put aside and say, I see where you have served me, but I choose this embodiment of soul.
Mm. So, for someone that's listening to you say this and doesn't relate, what would
That's
you say?
interesting.
Yeah, what would you say to them?
Um, doesn't relate in the sense that they do not see, um, they haven't been introduced to this concept of soul.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
them, for you, it sounds like soul is an inherent value of yours. It is
exactly.
not something that can be divisible of you. It is
Yeah,
intrinsically attached to you, right? It's embedded into you, not even attached, it is you, right?
yeah,
And so for somebody that is hearing you say, I want you to believe in magic and I want you
yeah.
to
I
be
understand that
your
one.
most soulful self, there can be a lot of intellectualizing that goes on in our world that's like, whoa, I'm not even relating to this. So what would you say to someone that's having that resistant experience or is just not familiar, doesn't have resonance with soul?
Well, it is all resonance. So if they truly do not, I think a part of them resonates because they came into contact with this thing that I was saying, right? Like they
Yeah.
came into the like going into quantum physics and shit, but like came into the reality of me saying this thing. So a part of them resonates. And I think it's just a matter of it's okay. If it's okay if your mind says, I it's okay if you don't resonate with my message, or if you say, if you go away, because then that's not for me. And then that's not for you yet, or doesn't matter. We all wish each other the best.
So the quantum element of it that you're referring to is, if you weren't meant to hear this message, you wouldn't even be listening right now. So there's
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that there is a very woo element of that for people, right? That do have a dominant intellectual side where it's like, wait, so you're saying that this was fate, this was destiny. Now you're going magic, soul, fate, destiny. They're like getting further and further and further away, right? So
That's
what
funny.
in my experience, how I came to my work as a coach was because I needed work as a
Because
coach.
we needed work.
I
Exactly.
needed it,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
then if somebody is watching this or listening to this and they don't have that inherent connection that you're describing, was there a point that walked you towards this relationship? Or were you just always inherently this person that was connected to magic and soul and the like?
Yeah, I like that question because I think what comes into mind and play then is like these periods in our life. Because let me tell you this, I think the notion of soul can be very, of course, when we put it in our minds, it's going to be very far away because intellectualizing something such as a soul, something that can only be felt, is not going to be understood by the mind. So,
Mm. Mm.
um, right? Um,
Mhm.
yeah. um, and what I was saying is we are all going through this experience of life. So that is not woo because we're all going through this. We're going through the same trials and errors, and that's what I've experienced. The most important part of soul to be is the fact that we are all going through the same difficulties or the same feelings, right? Like it's the human experience that binds us together. So I think there's a period in our lives where we have to restore faith or dive into this topic of the soul and the heart and the feeling and the things that like to kind of get this wake up call to get back to our bodies, because that's eventually, I think, one of the most important links is to actually get into this space where we potentially recognize the soul or potentially recognize this element of eternity or whatever. That's okay. It doesn't matter because it's about our experience right now and what we contribute. And that's where the physical element comes in again. It's like, what are you here for? Let's go. Like, we
Yeah.
are here and we're here to, we all want happiness, right? And we kind of all want the best for one another. And I think that's these basic human principles um, that are the basis of a lot of spiritual religious traditions, but also of this basic human consciousness that then gets back. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
I love one of the things I love the most about Charlotte is that when you went, right? There is an awareness of self that you have that is very potent and it's unapologetic and you're here to have a good fucking time. Like this is like the bottom line is Charlotte is like, I want to have a good fucking time. And if you're not having a good fucking time, you're fucking up. And I so appreciate that about you because I think for women especially, and for minorities of any sort, like for you to stand up and be visible in a culture that has been largely male dominated for almost everyone
Mm,
is very challenging to be in your body, as you said, to be fully expressed. And that's
thank
what,
you.
yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah.
It's just who you are.
Yeah.
And it's a
Mm.
beautiful permission. Like there will be times where I'll be having a shitty day and I'll go on Charlotte's Instagram stories and she's got like, your face is here and it's coming out and you're dancing and you're just smiling and I'm like, that's it, that's all I need. Like got my elixir, I'm
No, that,
right. And so when you say come into your body and you start talking about what I hear is individuation, self-actualization, acknowledge what your consciousness is, I hear you talking about capacity, right? Like some people will come to this life to be conscious of who they are and what they want. And some people just aren't. And that's okay, right? We're all here, we're all processing things differently. But what I
yeah.
hear when you say soul, and please correct me if this isn't complete or it's in any way incorrect, is your essence, right? To be fully expressed in your essence. And I really appreciate you going down that pathway in this conversation, because I do feel that sometimes I'm a very intellectual person. I can lean on that. I can get lazy and lean on that, if that even makes sense, but it does to me. It just to get away from the emotions, because I'm also highly empathic at the same time. So it can be
Yeah.
overwhelming and it feels like a pendulum. You're just like, trying to find the center, right? And so coming back into your body then, I think gives a way to lessen that woo experience for people that
Yeah.
are highly intellectual, so that they can take that, magic, they can take that soul, those words that can be triggering and also create a sense of disbelief, right, for people that are highly intellectual,
Exactly. Yeah.
and give them a frame of reference of it's not about this figment of ethereal shadow. It's not about
Exactly.
something you can't prove. It's about what are you like when you're fully expressed. Fair?
Very fucking fair. Very fucking. Yeah. What did you say? Like I had one thing. I was like, I want to get back to you on that, but um, yeah. It's that it becomes an excuse not to look at your own well-being and how you can be right. But it's the craziest thing to cock block yourself like that.
It is.
To say, well, I understand because it's a thick layer of intellectualized matter that's in between it, right? But
Sure.
to cock block your own joy, and that's what makes it so concrete. It's like it's just fun and play and well, also the misery and also the darkness and also the rawness of existence.
Yes.
Yeah.
So something that Louisa said, who you mentioned earlier, that the Yana, we were in the Yana mastermind together. I had Megan on the show, Louisa and Lee, and they all mentioned that. So the viewers and the listeners are probably pretty familiar. That's where I met Charlotte. You're actually in the Netherlands right now, right?
Yep.
Right. And something that Louisa, who is also in the mastermind, said in one of in her, I think it was the second podcast I did, but she said, and it just landed so deeply with me, and I think it's applicable here. She said, magic is just unproven science.
Oh, yeah, but even if it's proven now, it's proven already. Like I don't even know all the terms, but it's like quantum mechanics and
Yes.
yeah, a lot of it is already proven. So yeah, it's so easy to become attached to needing to control the outcome, right? But it's just about how we are living right now, right here.
Yes.
Are you
Right.
loving your spouse the way you want to, right? Are you having that tough conversation, like the sticky, icky conversation that Yana said? Yeah. Yeah, it's about being human. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that because for years, our development of our world had to be so highly intellectualized because we were
Yeah.
trying to do things like create electricity so we wouldn't freeze to death and heat and all this shit, right?
Fair
Now,
enough. Yeah.
those ways of thinking, there's a release that can happen. But because
Mm,
our world is so run by definitions and rigidities, and
mm,
that is what we've been programmed to believe makes us safe, the mystery has become
true.
the enemy.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that so much. Yeah.
So I really enjoy you bringing it back down into the body, because I
That's cool.
think people lose that sense of mystery
Yeah.
within themselves. So when they encounter it in the world, there's a resistance because they don't know how to control what they don't understand. And if they don't understand it in themselves, they are not going to be able to process it and retain it. And that's not bad or wrong. We all have a capacity, and it is very, very, very important we honor that. That's what keeps us stable and safe and secure
Oh,
and able to evoke boundaries and take care of our energy and remain healthy. But we cannot embody that which with we refuse. So
yeah.
for somebody that is watching this and you're like, come back into your body, they got to be like, what the fuck does that mean?
What
What
the fuck
would
does
you
that
tell them?
mean? I'm in my
Yeah,
body.
yeah, they're like, hi, I'm here right now. So what would you say to them? How would you, keeping in mind that this is like a 45-minute to an hour show, how would you explain to them what you mean when you say that?
What I mean when I say that.
Yes.
Poof, I think I can best explain it by just giving a very practical example, which is um, we all know the difference between being in our heads or being in a headspace versus um, being physical.
Mm.
And sometimes even when we are physical or go to the gym, we still remain in our heads because we still kind of do not link ourselves to our environment. So I think that's a very important part
Mm.
of getting into your body and um, relating your body to your environment. But I'd say like the first thing that came up for me was um, literally sit with yourself as and dance with your body and feel your body. And these moments when they are almost confrontingly physical, like in the shower, being in the shower, then
Mm.
like use your breath, get down in your body, walk, walk outside, get in your body. And then
Mhm.
I think there's also this component of expression that is very important of being in your body because sometimes even like in these periods of my life where I felt kind of lost or yeah, like lost, having lost vision, I'd go to the forest and I'd walk, but I'd still be in my mind. So
Mhm.
reference yourself through other people, through social contact, because they speaking is also physical, right? Like
Yeah.
speaking is physical. Um, and this is a very, very potent way of getting that connection back with your body because you're not constantly thinking of who you are, who you should be, what you should be doing, blah, 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 like where you should everything. And so what I mean by going into your body, um, yeah, it's a literal thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 So I would call
You
this
need that
present, right? Like
presence.
that's
Like,
like
yeah.
that's what I would call that is presence. And you said
Yeah.
something, and this isn't my way of debating you. This is just my way of introducing another concept or another thought, which is I find in my experience when I am meeting somebody who has never coached before, never had a coach or and been in any sort of containership, or hasn't really been in their body before, that dropping out of their head is a learning experience, right? Because you're
Mhm.
so familiar, that's your automaticity, that's your pattern. So when you're walking in nature and you're like, okay, I got to go to the grocery store after this, I got to
You will be
choose the
on.
kitty litter, just
Yeah.
those patterns are tuning in.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can be difficult to get into your body because you don't even know you're not in it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so, for presence, then, right, that becomes, in my mind, a practice, right? How do you relate? Do you think the same thing? Like, is presence a practice for you? Like, because to me, it's something you have to intentionally evoke, right? Because it's super easy to get on your phone and just numb scroll, right? It's super easy to turn on Netflix and just fucking go through whatever series of series they have, right? It's easy, it's accessible. Go on ChatGPT, type in something, have a conversation there versus dropping into your own presence. So for me, I think that if a lot of the times it has to be intentional. You have to notice, like, I'm in the woods. What's my intention of being in the woods? So that you can talk to that voice that goes on the who should I be? What am I doing wrong? What, right? Goes through the checklist of how to human, essentially.
Exactly. Because if you're asking me like what would you say to somebody that is in their head so much that they've completely lost touch of their body,
Yeah.
um always start small, right?
Yeah.
Like start small. And I remember a friend telling me this, and that is she would like to practice mindfulness,
Mhm.
right? But meditating didn't work for her
Mm.
because how fucking difficult is it to sit still, potentially with our eyes closed, potentially at 1 p.m. during the day where our energy is raging. I mean, pita time, if you if you remember.
Yeah.
Um, right? So, and then she found the hang drum, like tidum, tidum, the instrument,
Yeah.
and this gave presence to her. And I
Hmm.
think these are the gifts that if you, so this is maybe like a woo thing again, but if you open yourself up, or you intentionally, um, if you intentionally open yourself up to the awareness that you are not in your body and that you want to get back in, or that you would want your life quality to improve in that sense, um, God will give you opportunities, and you will find where you are guided, because you will find new sports or opportunities that you like, that you would like to try out, or that you would like to do. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's almost hard for me to empathize or to step into this, right? To step into this um, position of being so disconnected.
Yeah.
But I think 2 months ago, I was very disconnected from my body. And sometimes these are just periods in your life as well. So,
Sure.
yeah.
So that brings me to my question then. So if this is something that you are saying now you have experienced as recently as in the last 2 months, is that experience that you've had a familiar one? Were you able to recognize that you were disconnected from your body?
At first, well, I felt I was very connected to said spirit or source,
Uh-huh.
but um, I didn't understand that I was not like maintaining my health properly, and thus my body properly. So it was really it was an extreme period for me, but um it was quite unaware at first, and then only when I accepted a certain situation that this awareness could drop back in, and that this ease could drop back in and could tell me, right, hey, you've forlorn us, right? Like, where are you? And I could
Yeah.
notice this in my dance, because I freestyle dance, and with freestyle you have to be connected, because like you'll be able to follow steps, but you will feel that your back is stiff and tight, because you won't have the groove that you would normally have in a certain genre of music and dance. Um, so this was quite confronting, yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm asking this question is you noticed it, right? You noticed that you felt disconnected, right? So would you say that you weren't always connected to your body? Is that a reason why you were brought to this work?
Yeah, 100. Well, okay, so I've always been very, very, I'd say we are constantly always going in, going out, going in, going out. We have periods of more connectedness, we have periods of less connectedness. There's hope for everybody. Like, let's put that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there's hope for everybody. Um, and even when you feel or think that you are not very sportive, is that how you say it? It's like when you feel that you're not very movable. It's we have bodies, they can move. We have muscles, they can be trained. So it's always possible. And we each have a unique movement language as well, which is very interesting.
Mm,
Um, but as a child, because that was your question,
yes.
I was already dancing when I was a child. So I was already always connected um, to that beautiful life path slash profession, passion. But I did lose contact a few times very severely. One time when I was 17, when I got a burnout.
Hmm.
And then throughout the years, I kind of like forlorn, like almost, it's like almost denying my mission or life path is like almost denying, no, dance is not for me, or that movement is
Yeah.
not for me, and living very secularly, like living very,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. I
yeah,
think that's important. I thank you for sharing that because I think it's important that, people understand that some of us just are born that way. It appears like, right? They're just born connected. They're very rooted. They're very ethereal, and they're all, and it just seems very whole. They seem
yeah, yeah,
whole. But there are those of us that, we go through, it's like undulating. We go through peaks and valleys of our stability and our fullest expression of soul or essence, right? And I know for me, like I said previously, I came to this work because I was disconnected. But like
yeah,
you said, I didn't even know I was disconnected. And
yeah,
what's interesting is as you go through your journey of realizing what it means to feel inside yourself and see yourself clearly, not just like you see your physical self clearly, like see all these attributes of you that create the complexity that is beautiful, that is you.
mm, mm,
A part of that becomes putting your arms around those valleys. It becomes putting your arms around and accepting those moments where you feel disconnected. Because
yeah,
I don't know about your experience, but in my experience, the more we resist that disconnectedness, it almost feels like the more disconnected we become.
of course, yeah, of
So,
course.
out of all the things that you could have done professionally, why take on this work, especially when you're like sharing with us that you've gone through that path of resistance? This isn't for me. I can't do that, right? Why this? What changed your mind?
I couldn't, I couldn't, I couldn't move away from it. Like it keeps coming back. And I love doing it. Like I love moving. I love integrating this human experience as a whole. And I love um, guiding people in this path of feeling into your body's strength, feeling into the strength that you carry and the gifts that you have, the things that you can do, um the yeah, I like taking all of these components. I don't know if you know a little bit of human design, but I'm a projector, so
Okay.
I love cruising through the layers, taking something there,
Yes.
taking something there, and connecting earth to sky. Kind of that's,
Yes.
yeah, kind of that's, how do you say, uh, feedback. And why do I keep coming back? Why do I do this? Because also the things in the valleys that I've um, been faced with, um, movement and like body practices have always helped me come back as well.
Yes. Hmm.
So
I mean,
yeah,
somatic healing is basically what I hear you're talking about.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
scientifically proven that the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your regulation and your stability and all of that, responds very well to moving energy. Stagnated energy creates buildup.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
so,
Yeah.
and so when you allow yourself to move, I'm curious about this, you develop your own language of movement. So describe for us what you mean when you say that.
For me or in general for people,
Whatever is coming up in the moment.
whatever is coming up at the moment. Um, well, I loved saying that and I love seeing that because it makes so much sense, right? Like it makes so much sense that when we allow our bodies to be free in its movement, we all like each of us has a unique body.
Hmm.
So of course your movement is going to be unique because your joints are different than theirs and etc etc. So
Mm,
and
beautiful.
also the way you, that's why you have all of these different body types, for example, and the sports that better suit them. And this is something that Chaz from Roots of Play that I was telling you about said. I kind of felt awkward about my body before, him being very lean and quite, they used to call him skinny, for example. But now I figured, and he, short introduction for the people watching, he does tree climbing and nature parkours.
So cool.
And his body actually allows him to move with this environment perfectly. And he said, even though I felt awkward before, I now realize that my body does exactly what I need it to do. And I
Wow.
think, yeah, and I think it's just such a shame that a lot of us don't even explore that connection with our bodies, um, because it has so much beauty to tell and to express through
Hmm.
us. Like we have, think of it like this. What do we for sure have coming into this human experience? It's this.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's this. And with this, yeah, it's just, I think it's just a shame if we do not, um, well, it might be a shame. I don't, um, you're either unaware of or aware, but if you do have the opportunity to do so, like, uh, I'd say take it because it's another love relationship that will give you so much because it's literally a relationship with self.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's beautiful. I think
yeah,
that's beautiful you describing it, especially your friend who does parkour, and I'm just like, that stuff scares the shit out of me. For but for someone like that, I mean, it doesn't, right? Like I was a cheerleader. I was always the person on the top, right? And I always had the agility to be that way.
exactly,
And I
exactly.
and it wasn't something that was like, you know, I was programmed to do that. I was 5 years old when I became a cheerleader. Like, I didn't
Yeah,
know, I didn't even know what the hell I was doing, right? But for whatever reason, the body, the magic of my body was able to do that, right? And I hear you talking about your body like something to be explored. And I really hear such a softness in that
yeah,
because so often we're not thinking about what I'm doing today, like what I'm putting in my body. What is that paying forward tomorrow, right? What
yeah,
is it giving me in this moment?
yeah,
And I think that that is something that causes us to be disconnected from ourselves because we're so up here that we're not thinking about how holding on to stress is impacting our body, right? Like
oh, that's such a big one. Yeah,
in the dis-ease that we feel, right, creates disease in our body. And that, we could go into a whole level of conversation of how it gets into your tendons and how it
oh,
how it makes you feel rigid and stiff, right? And people aren't given that information, and
mm,
therefore it becomes useless. But it's only useless because we're not using it.
exactly, exactly. But that's kind of like the wisdom that we're getting back to that was also lost in for
Yes.
example, the Hindu or the Eastern Indian energetic systems and
Yep.
the Vedus and the, what is it again? Like the
The
uh,
Vedas, the chakras, yeah, I see where you're going.
yeah, like the healthcare, the um all of this information is already accessible. But now we're
Yeah.
like, right, we're actually not taught how to be human. So now let's look at systems that have looked at what being human means, have written it down, and have given us guidelines as to how to do it best or how to move through it as um, fluidly as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and to me it's such a sad, and this is where I hear you talking about the magic coming in, is like you have everything you need at your disposal
Mm,
inside of your being.
mm,
If we learned how to talk to that, create a dialogue, and that's what I hear you talking about, like the language of your body, right? Let it speak to you, and then you speak back
mm,
and refrain with your action or inaction. And that's where the magic comes from, right? It's like you actually know, and this I talk with my clients about all the time. Most of the time, it's not that my clients don't know what they want. They know what
no.
they want.
Mm.
They just don't know how to do it. And
Yeah.
the how becomes a part of that inner dialogue, I believe, right? It becomes the answer is within you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And even that resistance that we were talking about before, perhaps the contraction is the opportunity for expansion.
Mm. Yeah, but then the question rises, how do I get access to pluck at that contraction, right? It's like, how do I create the space necessary in my life, in my mind, in my body, etc., my heart, to actually breathe air into this contraction to
Mhm.
find the answer, because that's where we are good at stuffing ourselves full.
Yeah, so how would you answer that? I mean, it's a great question.
Honestly, like I might be a coach, but I'm also still figuring on this whole thing out. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, we all look, we all know what's good for us, right? Like there, we all somewhere we know what's good for us. And so I think it's being kind to yourself because you're already trying your best. You're already hiring a coach to see what's best for you, right? It's like what's the how, what the how is. There's we're already doing enough, but I'd say completely individualized how to do that. Um, I think when it comes down to it, it is that self-love. It is that um that breath, like allowing yourself that breath of like, and that comes with rest, and that comes with like physical rest, I mean, but also just resting on the subject, like rest, whatever is giving
Yeah.
you that much stress or distress and suffering, and um allowing yourself the social contact, allowing yourself maybe the day off, or
Hmm.
allowing yourself the structure of the job, or allowing yourself like it can be so many different things, but and it's a big subject, right? Like
It's huge.
anything can make us contract, and within that is like the kind of this answer call for expansion. um and I also think it oftentimes has to do with perspective, so taking yourself out of this cramped perspective, and because then you can look at your life in this bird's eye view and see like, oh, okay, I understand how this situation makes sense in the bigger picture,
Sure.
how, yeah, how it makes sense in my evolution, or etc. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you said something before, and then you kind of like backed off of it, and I'm gonna go full with it.
Oh,
Which is it would be a shame, right, to miss out on yourself. And
oh, yeah.
I agree with that because this isn't you're shaming anyone for not doing that because if you feel fulfilled in your life, then fucking move on. Be happy with that. That's you're fulfilled. That's it, right? Be
Yeah,
happy. But if you're not, that's where it would be a shame because this is a limited time experience. You will
that's right.
expire. You will
Yeah,
curdle like milk and it will be time to go away.
that's
And so that is where I think it would be a shame. Not that they or anybody should feel shame. It would be a shame to be like, wow, when I was young and agile and I had the elasticity in my joints and my ligaments, I really would
yeah,
have
go
liked to
move,
have tried parkour, right?
go move.
But then I didn't, So I do agree with you. I think that it is important that we, like you said, look at the bigger picture. And that can become hard when you're not in your body because then there becomes no relevancy to doing that. It's like you get up, you go to work, you
Mm.
make money. You get up, you go to work, you make money. You just become on this constant cycle because you're just in survival mode. That's survival mode, right?
Survival. I know survival is so prevalent. It's so piercing.
It is, and it's not
Yeah.
wrong. Everybody needs to survive and more
No,
power
but
to
there's too
you.
much of that. There's too
Right.
much of that going on. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
opportunity is to realize that you're having a blessed experience. And I think this
That's
all
it.
the fucking time, right? Like, out of
Yeah.
all the things that have happened today, you got to be alive. And there are people that don't. There are people that pass away. There are people that aren't even in existence. And for some
Yeah.
reason, the universe thought it appropriate to spit you out. What a fucking blessing is that? That's a miracle. It's a miracle, right? When you think of how difficult it is to create life, it's challenging to
Yeah.
create life. And you're here, not by accident. But the
Yeah.
thing I also hear you saying is you have to be willing to be a mess. You have to be willing to make mistakes, right? Because magic is inside the fucking mess. That's
It's
what it
all
is.
of it. Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
mystery. That's
Yeah.
what it is. Like, And for me, it's always like looking at another person and being so enamored with their mystery.
No, I love that. Yeah.
There's so much we don't know about each other. And so
Yeah.
if this is your profession, then my wonder is how difficult does that make it to do what you do? Because every single person is a completely different story. Every single person is, you're different than the next, you're different than the next, you're different than the
Yeah.
next. Everyone is. So how does that challenge you in this role with what you do?
With what I do. Ooh, but I love it. I love it because every time I thought I figured it out, somebody new comes to me and I'm like, you're a whole different recipe. And it's as I was walking with a friend of mine in the forest, and I'm actually like kind of crafting a purpose session now. And because I really feel the call to do that. And effectively spoken, I would have sat inside, planned a call with somebody, tried it out. Now I was like, no, I'm gonna walk. I need to walk. He needs to walk. He's been inside all day. And we start walking and we start speaking of purpose. And he's not necessarily into this topic in the way that I am or we are, but and I'm like, okay, let's do this, right? Let's just pluck it out. And we get to a purpose. And um I forgot what the relevant question was, but he's like, damn, thank you. He wouldn't have been the particular client, but he needed it.
Yeah.
And it was both, that's what I wanted to get on. It was both for me so thankful. That's the thing. It's thankful to be in your mission. It's
Hmm.
constantly being open and learning and just being thankful for the fact that you can give meaning and that you can give um, relevancy to this world. And that's what I experienced with him. So it's an equal. That's what different people are. They are different forms of blessings in that
Hmm.
sense. They are different forms of blessings. They are like mirrors. They are like shutters that um, mirror back different parts of me that in some way, shape, or form, our magic was aligned to help each other in that moment. And that's what's so beautiful about that. Yeah.
Beautiful. The question that I was asking was, what makes it challenging, right?
Okay. Yeah.
What about your job is challenging because, and I hate to call it a
Mhm.
job because I can feel it's so much deeper than that for you. I relate to that wholeheartedly, but
Challenging.
there has to be challenging aspects
Yeah.
because when you're constantly receiving a new recipe in an individual, right? You have to have an elasticity and a malleability in your brain that allows to completely create a blank slate every single time a new person comes in.
Yeah. I'd say for me right now, mm, the biggest challenge is my own mental self-talk because that's mostly what I'm still I am still because I'm quite new to the coaching world. So what happens with me is if there's a drought, if there's a period of um, no direct coaching clients coming in, which I've experienced this period, like this past period, then I feel like, is it still what I'm meant to be doing? How should I be
Mhm.
doing? Like it's kind of like the dry pushing that eventually gets me to the place where I'm being reflected why it is that I do it. And I'm not yet in the space where I have client after client after client to have to switch and to have to use that elasticity.
How
Um,
exciting.
yeah, yeah,
I like that you're positioning it as a challenge and a benefit, right? Like you're in that growing stage of understanding your positioning as a coach is what I hear you say.
exactly. Yeah.
And I think that that's very admirable because I think in the coaching space, I see this a lot, is that coaches will come out and be like, I have the antidote for everything. And it's
Uh,
just like, I already
yeah.
don't believe you because if that were true, then like no, life wouldn't be the way it is, right? And nobody is that paint by numbers. Nobody is that figure outable, right? So What do you think people should know then, right? In your line of work, if somebody is listening to you and they're like, listen, I feel stagnated I feel like the goddamn Tin Man. I need to get out and move. I need to
Mm,
some resonance in my body. What do you think people should know who are considering what you do as a profession?
absolutely. Just look, if you feel called to do it, or even if you feel that it's difficult to commit to us, because that's where I had problems. If you feel that it's difficult to commit to a certain path, just go, because it's all trial and error.
Mhm.
And um, sometimes you have to rely on the foundation and the bare bones of the path, because the meaning will return to you, right? Like meaning can fall away, and trust that there was a reason that you want to do this. And um, yeah, connect with people. Feedback from others. Feedback
Yeah.
from others. Yeah, 100%, because you have to feel appreciated in what you do. So you have to, like, you can only imagine the worth of something that you are going to offer, but others will reflect it for you truly.
Yeah.
And that's how you will understand the impact of it. And
Mm.
that
I hear,
will, yeah.
oh no, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Well, that's what will give you the confidence and the understanding of what you are offering. Yeah. And the
Yeah.
confidence to continue and to keep on going.
I hear you tying this back to the thing that you said originally, which is the importance of understanding your essence and intentionality, right?
Mm.
Because through intentionality, through authenticity, you create conviction,
Yeah.
you create stability, you
Yeah.
create independence. And through independence, you increase your capacity, the capacity to say, this may not be for someone else. It may not be their solution. It may not be their methodology. It may not be their way of thinking and how they like to approach life, but it is for
Exactly.
me, right? So I hear you talking again, going back into that mess as your magic, right? Understanding what your essence is and come to a soulful place about it, but also to understand that being soulful is an intentional act. Like
Yeah.
presence is an intentional act.
It's devotion. It's devotion and it's discipline. I had a call today and we were speaking of like discipline. And it was like, we need discipline. We need discipline. We can't just because you have a certain amount of energy and you have a certain amount of focus each day. So you have to be intentional and devotional with what you want to achieve. And that doesn't mean being hard on yourself. That means being intentional. That means being intentional. No, I'll go to the forest right now because I know my body needs it and I need social contact and thus. And then the intentionality of me doing something good for me rippled out and was actually more effective because I had to have this purpose session. Like it will always reward you. Will
Mm.
always reward you. Yeah.
Mm. But what about the people that are listening to you saying, yeah, but I have to work, and yeah, I have to do the laundry, and yeah, I have to take my kids here, and yeah, what do you say to those people?
Everything can be intentional. Everything can be a ritual. Do your laundry intentionally, right?
Oh, I love that. I
Good.
totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I understand this kind of in Dutch we call it wrok. It's kind of like, yeah, but I have to work. And that's because there is a wish for change, right? And there are two ways. There are different ways of looking at that. And the fact that that feeling is there means that there's this wish for something to change. So I'd say use that as an indicator to see what you gotta change. Yeah, to see what gives you what would give you more meaning, what would give you more freedom. Because it's in the end, it's always us biting in our own ass. It's always like us being the dog, right? Like us being the dog biting in our own ass. And it's true because we have to work and it's a fucking mess. And we have to find we're special people, we're special souls, and we're trying to find a way inside the system, to change the system. That's difficult. So just it's okay. Self-love.
Right. Like you don't have, sometimes you have to accept that some things aren't going to change, right? Like some people aren't going to change. Some
For
some
example.
systems aren't going to change, but that doesn't mean you can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that you shared that, this is a new resonance of considering yourself a coach.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that because there have been several people that have been on the show who have shared, I started off doing this thing that's over here, and now I'm all the way over here doing this completely other thing that's not even remotely related. And they find ways to weave those paths together to be like, oh, actually, they were more related than I thought. So how does having this as a profession, you accepting it, knowing that you have to go through those contractions in order to bring that wisdom to the containers
Mm.
that you're going to hold, how have you already identified that taking this on and newly, in your own words, how have you already identified that this is continuing to challenge you?
What do you mean continuing to challenge me? Like,
So in your growth, right? So what you're
Mhm.
saying is this is a new thing, right? You don't just automatically know how to do all new things. It doesn't seem like you came into this with the awareness of like, hey, I know how to do all this shit. You're sharing with us how you're figuring out how to be stable in your position of authority about what you do, and you believe in it and you're being intentional about it. But just because you believe in something and you're intentional about it doesn't mean it doesn't kick your ass every now and again and be like, hey,
Mhm.
you need to grow here, and it's stretching you and you're like, I'm gonna break. So
Yeah.
how do you already realize it's challenging you to hold this space?
Um, I'd say the biggest challenge, you're asking me about what challenges have I already? Um, Biggest challenge is committing.
Mm,
Biggest challenge is um, committing enough to myself so I can commit to this work. So, for example, um, a while ago, I was in the dark, whew, completely lost again, and I've had to take in steps, like tiny steps of faith, and it's like I don't know how I'm gonna get out, how soon I'm gonna get out, but I also feel that there's so much goodness happening in my life. I'm just gonna continue, continue, continue. Um, and so yeah, for sure, the biggest challenge in this is retracting and kind of like hiding
mm,
myself from the
mm.
work.
Yeah,
Um,
wow.
yeah, and now getting out there again and taking that expansion on.
That is a huge awareness because I think so many people can relate to what you're saying here, right? Like, there is challenges prevalent in our lives, our day-to-day lives, and there are
Yeah.
things that it would just be easier, right? We're like, it'd be easier if I went and did this, and this would be more dependable, this would be more reliable, this would make more sense to the world at large. But my brain goes, I fucking hate that. And it feels like you're literally choosing something that would be worse, even though you think it would be more stable. And I
Well,
hear
that's I have been like it's almost like there is a part that I cannot control that's like no more. For too many years, you said that you want to be independent in what you do. So we're not, no more. Like, see it as a blessing or see it as a curse. But get your ass on the line. Um,
right.
and so now I'm like, okay, I see that, and I'm gonna choose to see it as a blessing rather than as a curse, or try anyways. So I get outside and I talk with people, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna generate the good energy that will have it go. Yeah.
Yeah, because the hardest thing is knowing that you choose your misery.
I know, right? And that, yeah, of course, people stay in it when they are confronted with the choice if they want to face 40 years worth of self.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I totally relate, right? Like I
yeah,
think in life will continue to present those things that will stretch us and grow us. And it's a gut check moment. It's like, are you willing to believe in you more than anything else?
yeah,
And that's what I hear you, it really is kind of the overarching theme of your work, is really encouraging people to lay it all down for them, for
mhm,
themselves. Because, you can be wear all of these hats that you have in your life. You can be a boss, you can be a parent, you can be a leader in your community, you can be all these different things. But are you you first? Are you all those things for you first?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's what I hear you saying. I hear you saying that you really embrace the idea of making it meaningful.
Yeah.
Everything, right? Like when you said doing the laundry is a ritual, I do that with cooking. I'm like, little bit of love here, little bit of love there, like, right? And you conjure the intention of nutrients that's
Yeah.
literally going into your body while you're creating nutrients, right? So for people that are listening to you and they're thinking, okay, I may need this, and I'm not sure if I need this. How could they tell? I mean, of course, they could reach out to you and they could book a discovery call. I'm sure that that is available, right? People could do that.
Absolutely. Yeah,
But
for sure.
what would be the resonance that they might notice inside themselves that could be an inclination of, all right, perhaps I need to get back into my body through, and what I also hear you saying is creating trusted movement, understanding my language. How might people know that they may need Charlotte to help them kind of thaw their own stagnancy?
I don't know what thaw means, so let
Oh,
me.
thaw. Thaw is like if you're frozen inside of
Oh,
your,
wow. Oh,
yeah.
okay, that's very, yeah, I'm happy I asked. Um, I think it might be so small, the thing that you would feel, right?
Beautiful.
It's like this little inkling, or it's very loud and it's screaming at you. It's like, please, just listen to me. Just
Yeah.
listen to me, right? Like I feel that there are things that I want to do that I am not doing. And
Mm,
I would just like to remind you that there is a limited time available.
yeah.
And I love to work with dreams. Like I love to work with dreams. I've had them since I was a child, like so
Mm,
vividly. And I was like, I'm gonna live like dad. And he was always known for skipping from job to job and traveling everywhere. Um, and I think it's the courage to follow up on what you already know. Um, yeah, what you already know. Um, so the resonance I leave to you because you can feel that resonance. But if you feel resonance with that mission and invoking that mission, creating deeper meaning for yourself into everything or anything that you do, because putting it in one area of your life will have it ripple out into other areas of your life. Because understanding quality of life, at one point you say, I don't want to go back to what I was used to, and I cannot go back to what I was used to because I now know differently.
mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Your work to me, and I can take this out in the conversation if you don't like what I'm about to say, but your work to me is about the ritual of life cycles, right? It's like you're going
Ooh.
to die and be reborn over and over and over again. And
Yeah.
either you're going to resist that and those deaths are going to level you and that can look like depression, right?
Yeah.
That can look like staying too long in relationships that are not healthy for you, or choosing unhealthy choices, right? Or choosing choices that are not your choices, someone else's choices. They're motivated by whatever else, not you, right? That can happen when you don't accept there are parts of you that are going to die. There are parts of you that
Yeah.
are going to need to be released from you. And in that release, the space will be filled up by the new resonance, the new understanding, and the new way that you express yourself. And every single way that you express yourself anew is like being born all over again. I
Yeah,
see
it really,
your
really is.
your work is so beautiful in that sense. Um, so with all of these likes and dislikes that you've talked about here today, right? It's challenging because you're getting a whole new landscape every single time a client comes in, and that's pretty common for a coach. You have to be willing to take off this hat, put on another for a whole different person. It's a very pliable dance you need to do. But also because of that, it challenges you as well, right? You know, the ability to be in this work means you got to face yourself. And that can
Yeah.
be really daunting and overwhelming. So with all of these likes and dislikes, besides, the work calls to you, it has called to you, you can't not do it. Besides that, why do you sustain this work? Why is it so big and deep and meaningful to you?
Wow, that's a very, very good question. Because up until now, it's that difference that it makes for these people. And it's the change you see in their ability to love and to crack themselves open. Um, and I remember this one time 2 weeks ago where I was cracking myself open, doing this little experiment where I was dancing in a place where I usually would not dance that freely. So I was like
Was it
consciously,
public?
what?
Was it a public? I'm like, did I see this on your stories? I feel like I saw this. Sorry.
Maybe. I think because I'm still going to post it because I was like literally, I don't know if you know Activation Vibration, but she's like a light language channeler. And I was like, literally, I don't really drink, I don't really do drugs, but I was like there. It was late, and I was literally kind of transmuting energy, channeling light language through my body. And before all of these people that I wouldn't necessarily feel that safe with, but I remember this man just that was in his rational mind before, or and testing the premises, walking towards me, and just like he was straight up tuning into my energy, and he started opening his throat, and he started singing, and he tuned into the vacuum that I created, um, and he um I was like, this is the space that I need to hold for you to do this and for you to gain access to this level yourself. And that's what I can give people. And that's the freedom part.
That's beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that. I hope you do post it. Did you get the gentleman singing?
I did not, but
Oh, okay. That's
but
okay.
yeah, yeah,
And just knowing that though, I mean, it creates such a visual, right? Like he was enchanted.
yeah.
Beautiful. I call that what you're talking about in the space. I call that I enjoy meeting you, meeting yourself.
I enjoy meeting you, meeting yourself. I like that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
So, people watching this, I really appreciate you giving people what I would phrase as a digestible understanding of what it's like to come to terms with something needs to change. That's what I feel like you're talking about here today is them reconciling with themselves. I can no longer run from me anymore.
No, that's so good. I can no longer run from me anymore. Yeah.
Yes. I appreciate you putting words to that because I think that sometimes we feel shame about that, right? I've coached people that are in their late 60s and their early 70s, who are deciding to start over in life and
Mm.
have
So
30
courageous.
for 30 years prior to that, they had an idea, an inkling, a sensation of what they want to do. For 30 years, they rejected it. And something typically catastrophic happens or life altering happens to wake them up to this time bound experience that we are in. And then they come and they're just like, I have no shame. I'm here to have a good time, like you're saying. And that's the most important thing I realize now. So
Yeah.
thank you for holding that space in the world.
That's it. That's it.
So, for people that are watching and they are so excited about what you're talking about, or maybe even feeling that enchantment that that gentleman was feeling in your energy and they're feeling compelled and drawn to you, what do you have coming up? Where can people find you and get more of you?
I have my website. I think you're going to link it. I have my website. I have my Instagram, charlotte.teunissen. I have my website, charlotteteunissen.com. Join my email listing, then I'll send you all the general updates on offers that I'm giving. Right now, I'm busy curating a purpose session, as I said. So if you want to get down with your purpose, if you want to create focus in that sense, then you can for sure book me for that. And besides that, I have my offers on my website, both in dance healing, in somatic healing, and I have some live events, but that's dependable on where you live. So, yeah.
Beautiful. And if you want to send me all the information for the live events, I will specifically link them by location in the feature.
Cool.
But besides that, before we wrap this up, what final thoughts do you have to add? What did you maybe touch upon that you want to expand upon? Give us something that you haven't said yet, or maybe something that you want people to walk away with.
Oh, I like that. I don't know, something sweet came to mind. It's like bake yourself a pie or something. That's
Oh,
it.
I just love you.
Yeah, I don't have a lot, I think. I loved our conversation. It was so good. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I really, just that is very indicative of who you are, right? There is a depth to you that is palpable, hence the enchantment. You don't have to say words, and people are drawn to that depth, that's potency. But there is
Mm.
also such a levity, such a lightness, such a magic, such an innocence, right? A childlike wonder and magic to you that is really baked into that recommendation of go fucking bake a pie. Like, because in that I hear like go do something that's going to allow you to drop out of your head and into your body and create something.
Create
Fucking paint,
something.
go outside, make a mud pie, right? That is
Yes.
just so it's fun. It's just fucking fun. Just go have some fun and you can take Charlotte's word for it. It's gonna do you some good. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. I appreciate you and
Thank you.
love your gift in the world so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for holding space. Thank you so much for binding together this recipe that gave me more clarity on why I am here, what I am adding and offering. So,
Thank you. Thank you so
yeah.
much. And thank you for watching and listening. As always, be good to yourself for fuck's sake. Live honestly in the dirty pretty of your life and choose to do the next right thing for you. Until next time, bye.